Welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Known Classics. This episode number 2266 and Doubleshot number 2160. Both these two trades here are done by, well, mostly we have Stan Lee and Steve Ditko in this one. The other is the air famous character, Spider-Man. First one we have is Doctor Strange, Epic Collection, Volume 1. Master of the Mystic Arts. Now, this book contains issues 110, Strange Tales 110, 111, 114, 146, and the second Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I'm not going to be discussing the Amazing Spider-Man because I've discussed that already in the Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection. As in the case of issues 110, 111, 114, 130, discussed as already in the Mighty Marvel Masterworks Doctor Strange one. In the case of basically issues 131 to 146. Oh, I should point out that with 135, that's the end. See, basically when Doctor Strange first showed up in the Strange Tales book, it was not his book. He was not the starring character. He was the Human Torch. Yes, I had heard the reason why Marvel did this was a sales boost. It lasted for 35 issues. Yep, with issue 35, he is dropped from the title and replaced with Nick Fury. And Nick Fury remained basically Doctor Strange got bumped up to, they used to swap every other issue, but then he became the main feature of the book, and Nick Fury became the backup feature of the book. Interesting. Now, mostly in the case of issues 131 to 140, basically throughout these issues, mostly put just Doctor Strange versus Baron Mordo and Tio with Clea, which basically starts their long-running romance, which still continues to this very day. Yeah. Now, of course, for a while she wasn't really identified, but mostly just Doctor Strange versus, well, Baron Mordo. Yeah, it's kind of concluded with issue 133. The first one's a new character named Senzia, a female character who appeared a total of 3 times over the years. Yes, and after this issue, she appeared 1 issue of Defenders, which came out in 1976, and her final appearance was an issue of Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, which came out in 1992. And that was it for her. Yeah, a relatively minor Doctor Strange villain. Yes, the character named Nakazia, basically somebody when he's battling Baron Mordo. She appeared a couple times. She appeared in this issue in particular, and the issue of Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, and that was it for her. Yeah, also at this point, Clea has not been identified. Yeah. Yeah, you might think, okay, when in the world does the battle with Dormammu finally wrap up? Well, let's wrap up issue 146. No, seriously. Excuse me. The battle concludes with issue 141, takes a break for a few issues, and comes back up now and again. Now you might be curious though, when in the world is Clea identified by name? Is with issue 135? Yes. Now, in case you're curious though, Stan Lee himself writes this book, mostly, but he has 2 different artists book. Kirby does, basically what time Nick Fury takes over, Kirby does the artwork and writing for Nick Fury one, while it's still Steve Ditko who does, well, Doctor Strange. Now, if you're curious though about the late Steve Ditko, who passed away roughly about a few years ago, how long did he stay on as the artist of this book for Doctor Strange, you might be asking? That's a good question. I think 146 was technically the last issue he worked on. Yep, which Yeah, that was his last issue, but that was also a sole issue. That was also the kind of start of Danny O'Neill's issue she wrote for the book. Yeah, Danny O'Neill's first issue he wrote for Strange Tales was actually 145, and he would continue writing forward for quite a while. For a little bit, not very long. Yep. 146 is noteworthy because it's basically, well, a fight with eternity. Yep. Who makes his debut in issue 138. Yep. Yeah. But basically, when we get to the next Marvel Masterworks trade, we're gonna basically, well, talk about a particularly very known character. But yeah, 138 is basically the debut of the Eternity character. Yeah, and the battle with Dormammu was concluded with 146. It is turning it for quite a while. They're turning it for about a year. But this is a really fun set of issues. I love it. I give this book a 10 out of 10 because it's just a lot of fun, basically, still reading Doctor Strange stuff. Alright, next up we have is, if I can get the thing here, here we go. This one. Here we're talking about, basically not from the 70s, only from the 60s, like in the case of Doctor Strange. Here, this one we're jumping into the 1980s. We have The Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection, Volume... don't have a number for this one. It's basically Kraven's Last Hunt. Yep, but like in the case of Doctor Strange one, I'm not discussing the whole thing because I've kind of discussed the main story already. Thanks in large part to the fact I discussed the main cross already. Now, I will discuss basically, this book does contain issues, it contains annual 2021 Spider-Man versus Wolverine, which is a very important one-shot. Go away, please. Thank you. Amazing Spider-Man 289 to 294. Web of Spider-Man 29 to 32. And Peter Parker, the Spectral Spider-Man 131 and 132. Now the 20th annual is the return of Iron Man 2020. Arnold Stark, yes, this guy. Yeah, Spider-Man fights in for this annual. He's also appeared with Snide here. And then basically that leads into the Spider-Man versus Wolverine one-shot. Yeah, where like Spider-Man this one-shot is in over his head a lot. And Wolverine's telling him to go home because instead of staying about his business. And here's the thing. It's written by... But here's a writer you probably may not be, but basically because of his current name. This is by Jim Owsley. You may know him currently today as Christopher Priest. Yep, Christopher Priest wrote this thing. Yeah, this one shot is infamous because this is the one shot that killed off Ned Lads. Yes. Who killed him? The Foreigner. And he remained dead for about 30 years until Dan Slott revived him for Clone Conspiracy. And also got Betty Brant pregnant. His widow. Yep. Oh yeah, and also this is the one shot where Wolverine finds out Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but it's an excellent one shot. Now you're probably thinking, does this one shot affect the main series? Oh heck yes, definitely. Because like Ned Land is killed off in this very issue. This continues over in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man. Issue 289, Raftery dies. Basically, it's a double size, as you're thinking, 289 double size issue, because basically, they go, oh, this is supposed to be the identity of the Hobgoblin. Oh, by the way, this period of time, apparently, Flash Thompson's accused of the Hobgoblin. And then it's like, who is it? Who is the Hobgoblin? They say it's Ned Lads, but this is a record of Roger Stern being he was just standing. And of course, also, despite the fact the dead Ned Lads come back via casket, this guy basically wanted to check the body for drugs. Betty Brant is basically rightfully upset with like this, and of course you have Jameson basically outright calling him out on his bullcrap, saying this stiff was his best reporter. He got killed over there. Yep, but it's not really revealed, and of course they mention the whole thing, and of course they have the funeral. We have Willis the Fist in his white suit. Now, why did the Four kill him? Because he was suspected with Hobgoblin, and of course Flash Thompson was supposed to, and then he, of course, parents by the Rose. You might be thinking, the Rose, who is this? This is Mr. Fist's alias. This is his second alias because he originally was known as the Schemer. I love the Rose. I think he's a really cool character. At the end of these issues, basically, Richard Fist gives up being the Rose and basically works for his father at the end of issue 293. 94, excuse me. Yeah, basically the end of these issues. And then we go over to Web of Spider-Man 29 and 2030. Yep. Where these more Jim Allen's, this more basically follow up. This is basically the funeral of Ned Land, which is interesting that they have this over Web of Spider-Man. You would think they'd have this over Amazing, but no, they had in the spin-off book. That's kind of weird. Yep. And they included these issues in here because basically they precede the whole... I think the reason why they included these issues in here because they take place between issues 289 and 290. Yep, and at the end of this two-parter, that's Richard Fist gives up being, well, the Rose. Yep, because the Rose worked for him. And then basically 290 and 291 is simply put a two-parter. What is this two-parter, you might ask? It's a two-parter of basically of the second time Peter Parker proposes to Mary Jane Watson to marry him. Yep. Second time. She says no, and this leads to stuff related to her family that continues in 291. Of course, around deals with the roll-up. Basically, it's more interesting when it comes to the Mary Jane plot where it's revealed that her father, of course, I thought it was included in 291, 292. Yeah, where they go basically with her father who was very abusive toward her. Yes, her abusive father. Which, of course, he's arrested, and then, of course, she agrees to marry him because she put her abusive father away. And then they have the wedding in Amazing Spider-Man Annual 21, which 20 years later, Joe Quesada retconned this thing. Yes, a beloved annual, which is done by Jim Shooter, and beloved by every single Spider-Man reader. People love this annual. Everybody except Joe Quesada, who's trying to retcon this thing and saying, oh, this never happened. And the way to explain this didn't happen, oh, let's have a fat guy fall on Spider-Man. And that's why I miss his wedding. Despite the fact people love this issue. Jim Shooter, Dave Michelinie, and Paul Ryan do this story. It's an excellent story. And reading this proves the fact that, yes, Joe Quesada was wrong. Yes, anybody who reads this annual, by the way, this annual was loosely adapted into an episode of the Spider-Man animated series of the 1990s. Except here in this story, Harry is perfectly fine. He's alive. He's perfectly fine. He's not the Hob. He's not Green Goblin. Nope. The villain in this one is actually Electro. Yeah, it's actually Electro. hmm And he decides to do it. He does stop Spider-Man. Yep. And then they have the wedding. Goes off, no problem. And it is pointed out, though, by a little fun fact, it is one of the rare superhero weddings. There was no interruptions at all. No suit villains pop up, nothing. Flash Thompson was the best man. In the TV show, it was Robbie Robinson. Yeah. I know who Mary Jane's maid of honor is. I'm sure it's probably Betty Brant. Yeah, presumably, anyways. But the ending was excellent. And then we have the Kraven's Last Hunt story. Bob ended there. This epic collection is awesome. I love it. I give this book roughly a 10 out of 10. It's excellent. Not much to talk about here because mostly with a lot of stuff that's not been collected before. I think the anime collected. I think 20s were collected. 21s were collected a few times over the years. But the regular issues themselves, I don't think I've collected before. I think even the Spider-Man vs. Wolverine one shot, that I don't think has been collected before. It's not particularly very controversial one shot per se, but it's a very important one shot. And I think it may have been the first Spider-Man one shot ever released. As far as I can tell, I think it is. That's not one of the annuals, the giant size books. It's an original one shot. That's not like a Marvel graphic novel. It's basically a regular sized issue. It's the very first one ever released for Spider-Man. And it's an excellent story. I think Chris Reeve does an excellent job with the story. Yep. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much that particular view. That's it for things. It's getting kind of late. So tomorrow, I probably will just probably get a chance to do Doctor Who, maybe a little bit. I'll probably get a chance to final episode of Doctor Stone tomorrow, along with maybe Comic Corner too. Okay, thanks for you. Bye.